Right, let's get started. So let's use this as a bit more of a pilot episode. Get to know you guys, get to know us guys, why we do what we do, why we got into physiotherapy, why we got into personal training, and I'll let you guys kick it off.
All right, good start. Well, I got into physio because I was... can you not hear me? I've got a loud voice. So I got into physio after not really knowing what I wanted to do. I looked at going into the Navy, failed the medical, and then was forced to do my A-levels. What did you fail the medical on? I can't say that.
I genuinely did not know that.
Yeah, failed medical, broke down tears outside.
Life-changing podcast already.
Yeah, I know. I've tried to leave the profession numerous times. I failed on my ACL, actually. My knee.
It's a bit boring.
You could have guessed that.
Yeah.
I'm severely colourblind, so I could literally go in and do one job. Nothing with wires. So yeah, I failed the medical, was forced to do the second part of my A-levels at Wilberforce College, East Hull repping. Shout out to Wilberforce, Dean Reacher. And had a year doing the general sales job. So I sold makeup out of a bag, door to door.
Oh yeah, Avon, wasn't it?
Nice. It was not Avon. It was some US cosmetic brand. I remember the spiel I had to do to prove it wasn't Avon.
Did I go through the spiel?
Can't remember what it's called actually. And then I sold gas and electric very, very badly, face to face and over the phone. And I just thought, I need to find something that I enjoy. Went to do sports rehab at Hull Uni. Very fortunate with first placement. Went into Hull City's Academy and just grafted, did everything they asked me to do. Got a job on the back of it, just looking after the under-16s, which then, right place, right time. Andy came in, a guy called Liam McGarry, who's still working in football now, gave him my first job. That turned full-time and spent 7 years at Hull City, which is when I met this man.
He hated me.
Hated him at first. Did not see eye to eye.
Definitely.
We'll discuss that in a next podcast. Set up a little private part-time clinic throughout my time at Hull. And then Boovy hijacked it. And we set up Flex Health in 2015, part-time. And within 4 months, it was sort of decision time. It was busy enough, phones were ringing, to hand my notice in to Hull and take it on full-time.
How did you guys find trying to set it up part-time and still working at a professional club? Because most people would see that as like it's all on, it's full-time.
We were talking about this yesterday, weren't we, actually? A lot of depth. And it... to be honest, we just kind of did it, didn't we? I don't think it was ever like conscious. We knew we wanted to do it properly. I think that was the decision we made, didn't we? Yeah. I think right from the outset we were like, I'm really close to this, aren't I? I think from the outset we had probably delusions of grandeur at that moment of thinking, let's do it properly. What you've done, you know, if you're going to do it, do it right. Don't do it as a part-time venture. Do it properly.
I was just thinking about side cash.
So then, when you said do properly, obviously you're coming from a professional setup, where physiotherapy is like a cornerstone of what goes on year round at a football club. Mm-hmm. What was the thing that you wanted to change by going private?
Yeah, I think one thing that we'd recognised, which probably to our credit at the time, was we did realise that in the city of Hull that nobody was doing it. We did recognise there was a gap in that the majority of the physios and I think we still are the only people who were really doing it that way.
Properly.
Yeah. Is that
disclaimer
that there was a big gap, you know, like between walking into a physio clinic, one single clinic room, versus what we wanted to do was get people out in the gym and get people moving. And then it was, again, just lucky in that Facebook was just kind of taking off, wasn't it? So we were getting decent views on a lot of our videos, which did, you know, if you got to kind of use, I suppose, right place, right.
Yeah, but I think the model that we put in place, where there was no one offering that sports medicine model. Like, the reason athletes get better is because from the minute they're injured, someone's holding their hand and they're doing physio 4 times, 5 times a week. So because we applied that model to physio, because we was working with people who wanted to get back to sport or just wanted to get back to work or their hobbies quickly, one patient we would get in 2 or 3 times. So if we're working, if we look at the business, how it works, we don't quantify it as patients, we quantify it as hours working. So if we've got 1 patient and we can see them 3 hours, you only need 5 patients on that premise to have a 20-hour week.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, because we applied that, probably is the reason after only 4 months of doing it in JD Gym, was the reason I could hand my notice in. It wasn't a mass amount to support me. I was taking a very small wage for the first. Yeah. From the February to the December, when we first took it full time, it was on very small wages. People around me supporting
Did you read my section of my email last night? I didn't take a salary for 2.5 years.
Yeah, no, you didn't join us for a year.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But the whole thing is...
You were still coined up from Hull City.
Yeah. But, in terms of that, going back to your question, when you've got to make that, you've got to make a conscious choice, haven't you? It's either you can't have best of both worlds.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Can you?
You can't half-ass anything.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Especially working in sport, one of the issues is if you've got someone booked in and your employer says you need to take X for a scan, or the lads played rubbish on a Saturday, we'll have to swear.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah. Fuck it.
It'll happen at some point.
HCPC, what like that. We'll refrain from swearing.
You guys can swear.
Cheers.
Chat status. So if the lads have played rubbish on a Saturday and the gaffer says, right, you're all in Sunday, and you've booked someone in, that's it. So it is hard. It's very, very hard in them early days to start a private clinic in sport, which is why a lot of them are just flashes in the pan. They'll do it for a little bit and they'll go.
Yeah.
I think it does you well as well, because if you start your own company and then you're sort of working for somebody else at the same time, do you really care what you're doing? Like if you're investing into your sort of physiotherapy and you're also trying to run 3 or 4 different things, are you really actually giving all the time that you need into that sort of clinic? It's the same with us. Like we used to run a gym, and then it was a gym that decided they wanted to do something else as well as other things, and the gym just got left behind, which is why we backed
you think
out.
as well, and you're now getting to that point where you're starting to diversify what it is you actually do, because now you're going into more of that OC health or wellness space. If you do something good enough and you do it well enough for the right reasons for long enough, that diversification just comes naturally. Like the opportunity presents itself where we're doing this that good or that well that we can actually open a door to this now. And then 9 times out of 10 people try and do it all at once before they've earned the right to do any of it.
Yeah. More about quality. And it still is, to be fair. It's about quality, control. That's the most important thing to us. And that comes back to what you've just said. If you quantity over quality again is where people fail. Same with you guys. I'm always forever be a big believer that if quality is the first thing that you care about, then your business is going to succeed in some way, shape, or form, because you care about the person, don't you, rather than.
Yeah. And we've spoke to a lot of people that are further down the line than we are, and that common theme is that everyone starts with a good intention, but when you start worrying about the business and not the product, it's irrelevant. You can be the best salesperson in the world, but if the end product doesn't get the result and the service isn't good enough, no one's going to come back. So it's you've got to have that idea and then execute it. You got to be relentless with your execution.
That's the hardest bit, though, isn't it? Yeah. It's even after 8 years, still caring about one review or do you know what I mean?
Definitely. Well, caring whether your patient actually gets better or not.
Fundamentally, it comes down to your product, because you could have a really crap product but a really good sales team, and you're going to get loads of sales in, and people may use your product now and again, but they won't stick with you.
Exactly.
You could have a really good marketer. You could push it out to everyone sees it, but if they can't sell and the product's crap, no one's going to stay with you. But if the product's quality and then you build a good sales team around it and you can market really well, then that's the way it should go. Yeah. Everyone looks at the sales, the marketing sales, and just focus on that, and the quality dwindles of their product. And that's fundamentally why that's why we moved to do what we do, because we're right, let's just make a quality product and build from there. And no matter what happens, it's always going to be about that quality in the service and the product we offer.
Which is your service compounds, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're starting to see that a bit now with you guys. It was similar for us, is that you retain those core fundamental people, and then the strongest referral is a word of mouth referral. I think you can spend as much money on Google, Facebook, whatever you want, but it comes down to, is that person who's actually coming in going to pass a referral across to somebody else? If they bring that person in, then you've doubled your income with one referral, haven't you? Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. I think the only way there's a slight shift in sort of attitude to working is in the early days. If you have someone that wants an appointment at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you have no one else that wants one at 9 o'clock, you do it.
Absolutely.
You are and especially in the early. I mean, it was probably the first 2-3 years of us. It was completely client led. So
absolutely.
Everything the client wants, they get. And until you get that reputation, you get a decent sort of workforce and staff behind you that you can actually say, no, it's time for you to work a little bit around us.
And that's I think people try to go into it thinking they can make people work around them, which is great, and ultimately it's something to aspire to. But you've got to start off with that the awkward hours, out of hours, doing stuff they want. You build from there. That's exactly what we did, and we were quite fortunate when we moved and started up. People already knew us, knew what we did, liked us, and wanted to stay with us. And then from there, it's just building.
And ultimately, it's that skin in the game.
Yeah, skin in the game.
You can't just go straight to the end point. Like in our side, it's like you've got to spend your hours in your commercial gym, doing your one-to-one PTs, working every hour under the sun, servicing anyone you can to build that reputation. That you can actually do what you do, build the tools. Yeah. You know, you guys did it in the professional environment in City. And then you've gone, part-time, but that's your skin in the game. Like, that's you don't just start a business and it happens. Like, opening a door to your facility is like, it's 4 or 5 years worth of work. Everyone just goes, we've opened and you can do it. It's like,
and that's why
you're not there yet.
That's why you guys can move online. Because if you just started online 5-6 years ago, it'd be like what you're doing, it'd just be trying to get another avenue in. Whereas now you have a very good clinic that's running self-sufficiently pretty much. You can now warrant moving online, and that's the issue with coaching. People are like, I want to move online, it looks easy, it looks fancy. It's like you've got to build that back end first. You've got to have the conversations, you've got to know how to help people, know how to make people progress.
Well, I mean, we see that now, because I mean, I'm sure it's the same for the online PT industry, that you need to be that skilled that, because you're never going to see that person in person. So when I'm having a conversation with someone, I've got to be confident that if what they're telling me, I can then say, yep, that's for physio, that's the diagnosis, that's the treatment plan I'm going to put you on. And I think you need to be able to be comfortable with making errors so that you can just pass it off and say, look, that didn't work, let's try this. Versus I think, looking back when you're kind of in training still, and you try and do it too early, that's when you start to panic a bit. You overthink things. If the treatment plan's not going well for us, or programming's not going well, whichever what you want to call it, you don't panic and think, I need to do something massively different. It might be one small tweak that you get benefit from, which I don't think everyone can do, particularly within the physio space, which is why it's not so prevalent at the minute.
I think it's probably the one area, so your virtual physio and your online physio, it's probably the one area where working in sport probably doesn't help you. Because if you're working in sport, the subjective part of your assessment is never as important, because you've seen them. They've been injured on the training paddock, or they've been injured on the field playing, and you're there, so you've run on. You know exactly what's happened, and then you send them for a scan. So you've also got double the amount of information until you start working with a public private setting, NHS setting, where your subjective becomes so important. And I think most physios in the graduate, or even in the early days, they're so dependent on their objective skills, which, again, some of the objective tests aren't even worth doing. You're then dependent on your treatment and your hands and trying to get buy-in through building trust from setting them exercises and just having your hands on them. But the experience comes when you're very, very comfortable with your subjective questioning, picking apart, okay, well, that hurts, that probably leads to that. And, building this picture and then developing trust through that, which is, probably why the online physio is slowly building rather than taking off quickly, because there's not many who can do it, I don't think.
No.
So do you think, obviously it's slowly building because not many can do it, but that doesn't stop the appeal of it, and there's a lot of people trying. Are you of the belief that it's more, because I always see online programming and coaching and physiotherapy as a lot more academic. Like, it's more of a case study. You're working off numbers and data and interpretation, which is more of the educational side of it. And then the good ones are the ones who have that vocational experience, where it's the people who are on the floor that can do it well. But the appeal to going online is that, well, if I've just done my qualifications, I've essentially just done an online case study. This is what online coaching is. So the appeal is to make it quick and easy and go big scope rather than going skin in the game.
Yeah,
that and vocational experience.
For particularly in the physio industry. So, I mean, I think I did some reading. The online PT industries now, well, as of 2024 to 25, it'll be worth, I think, 26 billion internationally. Physios, we got it really wrong in the pandemic. So we decided that we wouldn't look at how the online PT world had done it in terms of programming, because, and this is, me and Al were talking about this on the phone on the way in, there's a big debate at the minute around whether physios should be able to program or not. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why the online PT industry is not doing so well, is because physios don't know how to program, even at the most fundamental level. I'm not saying program for 12 weeks, I'm saying even program for a week. I don't think they know fundamentally. And physios will argue this until probably the day they die, but
post-surgically they can. If you have an ACL and you've worked in sport or an MSK setting, I think you could quite comfortably program someone. But it's the chronic conditions, the people who are coming with, the work-related bad backs, the bad necks, the bad shoulders.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, the lifestyle issues.
But even, I think we get so bogged down with this, not looking at the person as a whole. You get someone online with a bad back and you say, right, you're going to treat the bad back, whereas all the evidence is just get the person, instead of actually, you'd be better off in that approach, just saying, I'm going to take my physio hat off and just going to become a wellness individual, and just saying, look, these are the things that you need to improve.
So meet them where they're at.
Exactly. Get rid of, like you say, get rid of the academic stuff. Yeah. Your first thing should be, how can we program this person to just become more healthy, better lifestyle? But coming back to the COVID stuff, what we decided to do as a profession was, when COVID happened, was literally, it was soul destroying. It was, I'm going to sit and watch you for an hour do exercises.
I feel you.
Yeah.
We feel you, man.
And it was like, what are we, in the end, it was, I remember during COVID, when we had to move to this, 3 patients a day of an hour on screen, it was harder work than doing an 11-hour straight-hour day back to back to back to back.
Mate,
it was brutal.
We had people not setting the cameras up properly and hip thrusting right in our eyes.
Yeah. What happened with the profession is loads of patients and clients didn't have a very good experience. And then we've been forever known, that's my opinion, that we can't do online. Physios can't do online. And now, some physios, a very small handful of us, are trying to pioneer it and grow it again. So mine's not as dramatic as Mr. Chester's.
Easy middle class life.
It is.
I feel him.
So my brother, who's older than me, he decided that he wanted to be a physio.
So he stole his dream.
Yeah, basically. Well, no, he then decided that he was too. He won't admit to this, but too clever for that. He decided just to become a doctor. So
easy.
Yeah.
Just type in Google.
As you do. So I think up until the point he was 16, 17, he was going to be a physio. And then it was like, when it was kind of the thing for me was, so when I was 13, 14, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do as well. And it was kind of when physio had started to get a little bit of traction in the media. So it was like Gary Lewin had just absolutely smashed it, Annie. He was the England physio at the time. There was a story on Beckham and some sports therapists that had
met us.
Yeah, and he'd sort of, again, one of the newspapers did a write-up, and it started to become a little bit more, okay, like that's what I want to do. So right from the outset, I knew I wanted to work in sport of some kind, physio. And then, applied for unis simply, and then I got in well, I had an absolute nightmare trying to get into uni because I didn't get the grades that I should have done, and then didn't do my CRB, and then so I was supposed to defer my place, and then during,
I feel like we've all just ignored the question that needed to be answered. Oh, we just skated over it.
Bypass that one,
just in case.
Flex Health unqualified.
Yeah. Not actually a physio. I am a physio. And then so when I then went to uni, it was at a time where the course was actually paid for by the NHS. So you couldn't ever say during your interviews, it's bollocks. You couldn't ever say you want to work in sport. So during your interviews for uni, it was like, oh, so what's your career plan? It's like, yeah, I want to work in the NHS.
You want to try getting onto a physio degree when your first degree has been sports rehab.
It is nonsense, isn't it?
And you work for a football club, and you're sat in this interview trying to say, I don't like sport, I just want to be I just want to be on the wards. I want something more.
But it is this taboo, isn't it? Like even now there's a little bit of like weirdness around it. Like even now I can feel myself sitting here saying it thinking there's going to be some backlash to this. Like
I think the reason I got on is because at Salford they have that the FA fund players to go.
So the expectation is
they do have a module with sports rehab at Salford, so they have that. But it was terrible.
Isn't it? Like even now I can feel myself saying it, thinking some physio is going to be put out by this,
I failed 3 interviews.
Yeah. So it was a moment you said, I want to work in sport. It was like, nah, I don't want you.
Nope.
Yeah. So you had to sit there, tell them how much you loved care of the elderly and all that, which was not a passion of mine at all. And then I can't say I was the greatest student in the world. Didn't take it particularly seriously. Got a Desmond. Wasn't the best. Far too much just bothered about, I wouldn't say going out and getting pissed all the time, but just
going out and getting pissed.
Yeah.
As you are now, basically.
Yeah. And then essentially graduated, and then at that moment in time, so 2012, trying to get a job as a physio was actually really hard. It was really oversubscribed, and you had to be prepared just to move anywhere. So it was like apply for any job, throw your hat out, see what, cast your net, see what you can catch, basically. So I was applying for jobs, Southampton, London, Cornwall, Huddersfield was a few of them, and then Hull, and then on the UK Sport website there was like an internship for Hull. So I was like, during my third year, I'd managed to get some work experience at Leyton Orient for like a week. I think I put on my CV. I'd done like
definitely more
3
than
months. Yeah, it was a complete lie. And then I got up, to my surprise, I got an interview. And then
I was on that interview panel.
And then
he was the only one that denied him.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was a tight run between you and Roslyn.
Yeah. The best story from the interview was, I remember I felt like I was doing all right, and then the question was asked if you had I'd done no run-on experience, I'd nothing, and I'd done a little bit of research the night before on like what happens on during a run-on, and Kev asked me the question, what would your run-on protocol be? So I got that horrendously wrong, I remember. And then the next question was, if you've got a grade 2 hamstring tear, what would your time frame be? And the only thing I could pull on was Football Manager. So I was like, literally, I'm not even bantering. I was like, I couldn't. I was thinking, right, roughly speaking, what did Football Manager used to say? And I was like, 4 to 5 weeks. And he was like, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks. I was like, getting.
For a grade 2?
Yeah, exactly. So it was wrong anyway.
It's just some serious looking into Hull City's video team.
Yeah.
You could argue it, maybe.
Yeah. And then anyway, long story short, got in, and then they paid me, so they paid me it wasn't even $5,000 in the end. It was, they refused to pay me my last month's pay because they gave me a pay rise, even though I deserved that pay rise. Not bitter at all.
You sound like you're over it.
Yeah.
You sound like
and then they just kind of went from there. I was given a lot of responsibility at Hull. Probably didn't do a great job at times.
Al, comment?
No, we worked well. We worked well, but it was just some of the other physios that.
Yeah.
When I took the job at the academy.
Oh yeah, that was a good time. Before that, I was just stripped of all duties and turned into a mess.
So what we've discussed here is that me and Al were actually pretty rubbish until we started Flex Health. Yeah. So there we go.
You're still rubbish now.
you learn on the job, don't you?
Just salesman. There was something else I was going to say, but I've completely forgotten.
But in terms of, I think my takeaway point, not that I had this planned, but I didn't. I think if anyone is listening, they probably won't listen. But I don't think I really fell in love with the profession until I did start it. Going through uni, I was like,
I feel you on that.
Yeah. This is.
I loved it from day one.
Did you?
Yeah. I've kissing sold makeup for 12 months.
Yeah, I bet you did.
I've lived in the real world. I've gone to N-Power, selling gas and electric.
To be fair, I resonate with both your stories on that. Really, sort of felt it was the same. I started off the same way as Al. I went into. I always like what to call it, PE, and did BTEC sport. I did A level and BTEC, just to put that out there, because I wasn't just a BTEC wanker.
Offended many people.
So I fell into love with training about 14, 15, and I then just enjoyed training, enjoyed helping other people train. I just wanted to get better. I wanted to learn more, and just went from there. Went into A level PE, and then moved into. I actually dropped out my first year of college, then went back for 2 years. Then I went to uni to do sports rehab because I thought I was yeah.
What year was that?
Fuck knows. I was not on this planet. I'm 29.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was Colin.
14, 15.
Yeah. Was
it strength training you got into, and how?
I don't actually know. I've always enjoyed fitness. I think someone made a comment. I think let's get deep here. I think someone made a comment at some point, and then I'd put a little bit of weight on, because as you hit that age, you sort of start.
I've been there, Joe.
Yeah. I think I got like little Levandos, and someone made a comment. I thought, all right, the first thing was like, I was good at the gym, and then there was a teacher who. Nothing dirty.
How deep are we going with this?
He was a cage dancer, but that's a different story. There's a teacher who took a group of lads in the gym. It was Y fronts only. I loved it, but no. And he was always in strength training, and I just got into it, and I was a little bit stronger, sort of like average towards the most stronger side of the group, and then just enjoyed it really. And then from there, I just joined training, and then I met Nick and Cal, who were at St Mary's at the time, right. And then I pretty much just shadowed them. I was like, literally, like, I love what you guys are doing. That's when they were getting into all that Joe DeFranco stuff, and I was like, this is class. And then they worked at the other place, and what they were doing sounded epic. I mean, looking back, they got absolutely rinsed, but what they were doing sounded epic, and the way they were doing things just sounded great. And I was like, I want to. And at the time, CrossFit wasn't really a thing, but if it was, that's exactly where I would have gone, because I loved the fitness element, I loved the strength element. I was always like, I feel like you can get two at the same time. I started off very bodybuilder-esque, trying to change your shape and get bigger and X, Y, Z, do all the diet stuff. And then I was like, yeah, just sort of went from there really. And then when I was in college, my first year of college, I dropped out in. I pretty much spent all of it in the gym. The second year when I went back, I had a fourth subject I had to choose, applied science. Every time that was on, I just went to the gym. And then it's safe to say I failed that one, but I just passed the other three because I was like, I only need three, moved to that. But anyway, went into sports rehab because I loved anatomy. I loved seeing how the body moves. I wanted to understand how you can fix people's, at the time it was posture, because everyone was all about fucking posture and stuff like that.
Making a comeback, unfortunately.
Yeah. But like, I'd always do chest and bi, so everything, I was like, all I've been told was like, it's your postures, why your shoulders are bad, X, Y, Z. And so I went into that, did a year at uni in sports rehab, and to be fair, the anatomy side of things I'm absolutely fine with. I enjoyed it. I just had a lot of stuff going on the outside, and I just dropped out. But like my dad's an academic. My mum was like, you have to go into they're both like, you have to go into college. And to be fair, my mum went, if you don't go into college, you have to pay board. I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'll go to college and uni. So I dropped out. Didn't tell anyone I dropped out until the back end of the year. Mum went, are you still at uni? I was like, no. So I fell into working at a gym which was on the college site, and I was working there at the same time. And then I thought, fuck it, I'll just get a PT. May as well. I'll just get a PT, get it to back up. Never planned to use it. I never wanted to be a PT. Never wanted to be a one-to-one coach. It never appealed to me at all. But I was pretty much doing it with people I knew anyway, and people asking me, how do you train? What do you do? So it was clearly something I was doing that was people wanted to try. But yeah, and then I was working at this gym, and I was like, this is not a gym. This is just an absolute shit show. I was like, and then someone next to me was like, I'm looking at going to uni, and I went, that's fair. I might try to go back and go.
Try it again.
Yeah, I went. All right, I'll do sports science, then I'll see how that goes. And I was like, Mum was like, just get a degree. I said, worst case scenario, you can. It will get you. It'll open doors for you. I was like, fine. And I just basically flicked the switch, and I'd gone from not turning up at uni to pretty much turn up every day, every lesson. I was there for every lecture. I was there in the library afterwards, actually sitting there, because I fell in love with coffee, so I can get a decent coffee there and sit in the library. It was fucking quality. And just used to
wheelhouse.
Yeah. Oh mate, it was insane. Paul, if you're listening, yeah. So and I just changed my tune altogether. But I think it was more maturity. I got to the point where I'd taken a step back and gone, shit, I have no safety net here. People think obviously with my mum and dad I'll have a safety net, but I was like, if I don't do this, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to be a PT. I clearly know I don't want to be in sports, in physiotherapy, because I never did. And I fucking disclaimer, I don't like sport. I followed no sport. I am not sporty. I'm athletic. I'm not sporty. I can run fast in a straight line. I can run, but I was never into any of the sports, never football, rugby, or anything like that. I just got to it's just Modern Warfare 2. That's pretty much me.
That's why these suit you.
But yeah, so I knew I didn't want to do rehab, and while I was at uni, I moved from the gym I was at college to the last place we were at, and I was just good at chatting to people, and people seemed to like me, got to know me a little bit more. I was offered a job there, which I was like, yes, this is it. This is where I made it. I was very similar to you. I worked for about 4 or 5 months without any pay. I was not on any system. I randomly got 400 quid one day for about a month's worth of work, where I'd done about 70 hours.
Realising to leave.
And then I suppose, but like again, the guys I was sort of like wanted to learn more for were there, and I was just trying to get as much out of them as I could and just learn. And then eventually it transpired into getting a bit more of a paid role. Again, terrible pay. And then I ended up managing the place, and then about the last 2 years I was there, met Al. I just fell in love. No, I met Al, and he started at an unfortunate time. He started COVID, so he went from sort of coaching to just going into online coaching, which was terrible. And again, throughout that, there was a very illegal payment period through that, but let's just glass over that.
We still have the evidence, by the way.
It was but yeah, we got sort of screwed over with that. And then during COVID, while I was running this gym, I ended up having to dispatch COVID tests for this company who have the gym but also have another company, and it was just getting to the point. We had a kid that worked for us that I fired, and I'd walked into the office to start working there to find out what my role was, because I'd been promised a little bit extra money, XYZ. I was like, yeah, I'll chase it, that's fine. And he was there. I was like, what the fuck's he doing here? It was like, he was just sat in the office, and they went, oh, it's a bit awkward, isn't it? I was like, yeah, because I fired him because because my argument was he does not suit the culture of the business. He's not striving to push the business forward. He just cares about himself. I said, so he's not a good fit for the gym. I said, and plus the complaints, XYZ. I said, so he's just not a good fit. I said, at the time I was still pro company. I was like, so he doesn't fit the image of this company, pushing it forward. You guys want the best out of him. He's not the best for your company, and he might be great somewhere else, but here he's not. And they agreed with me. Anyway, I walked in straight away. I went, these guys don't give a shit about me, because if they clearly valued my opinion, if they clearly valued my opinion, he would not still be here. I sort of glazed over it, and then like a couple months into it, I'd taken like 3 days holiday, and I was in charge of sending people COVID test results back, which I did a bad job of, by the way. So I was working from like 5 a.m. through till like 1 o'clock the following morning, like coaching, dispatching tests, sending out results, then coaching, and then sending out results into when they came in, which was at any point when the lab decided to send them through. And I just turned around to Al, and I took 3 days of holiday, and I got a text saying, can you still just make sure you're sending out the results to people? And so like while I was off, I was like, Okay. I don't think I responded. I just cracked on. And then I turned around to Al. I got him in because he was pretty much doing all the coaching every hour on his own, like miserable. And like he was just getting more and more miserable. I was like, we need to change this. Pulled him in.
Just to clarify this, he didn't just pull me in. Okay. I got a text off his now wife who said, Joe's really struggling and he wants to have a word.
Yeah.
He then texted me and said,
bad way.
Can you come around for a coffee? And I dead set thought this bloke was going to quit on the spot and leave me to it. And I walked in, he just went, and it was real awkward. And he sort of sat down and presented me with a coffee instead of asking if I wanted one, which I knew some shit was going down. And he just went, and then I expected the whole shit sandwich, and he did the whole, look, I'm in this place, this is how it's going, this is how I'm feeling. I was like, fuck's sake, just pull the trigger, just do it. Stop pulling the band-aid off slowly. He goes, should we just do this for ourselves? I was like, oh, thank fuck, yes.
I was
yes,
like,
let's go.
I said, we're pouring all this passion into something that's going nowhere. I said, you want to make sure you get the best quality product. I want to make sure people are getting stuff out of us and enjoying it and having the feeling that we get out of training. And I said, this is not the place for it. I said, I'm just getting rinsed here, left, right, and centre. I can't do this anymore. What do we do? And then that's where the conversation started, and we rolled into what we're doing now, really. And then we
went through a lot of shit, and now we're here.
And then we just went from there and thought, right, how do we do this? And we used their example of how they ran everything there as a blueprint of what not to do,
exactly the same
of what not to do. Exactly, like to not just chase money, not just honestly, mate. At one point, they had about 20 different memberships. You could be training next to someone who's paying like $1,000, and they're getting the same amount of session that someone's paying like 200 quid a month for, because they're just like, oh yeah, get them in, get money. Oh, there's
I walked in at the start. There was someone paying £500 a month in the same session as someone who was paying £4 a session.
Oh, absolutely. And mate, honestly, some of the
ludicrous.
So some of the meetings we'd have is like, oh, there's cash, like there's just cash everywhere on the floor. You just have to pick them up. So like, yeah, just get him in. Just get him in. Oh yeah, it's just like. So like, what is? There's no business plan. There's no model. It's just So we were like,
money first, service second.
So going back to the start, products we don't really care about. Sales, didn't really care about, and marketing. They didn't care about. They didn't invest. No marketing invested in. Expected me to do everything. So long story short, we're like, let's do this properly. And I feel we are doing things more properly, building as we go.
Something's going right in it.
Yeah.
We're not homeless yet.
That's how the halves. But that's pretty much how I got into it. I didn't like sport. I liked training, and then wanted to do rehab. Didn't want to do rehab, and I thought, oh, fuck it, I'll PT. It turns out I fell into it quite naturally.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Finishes off.
And then tells your story.
Yeah, I'm that guy that you hear at the pub who was going to be the next big thing, and then injured his knee.
Ooh,
no, so I came into sort of the scholarship system as it started. So I was in and around that sort of professional environment with S&C coaches at 11 or 12, and we were like the first age group that got that. So we were training, as you do as kids in teams. You're training from like 7 or 8, but then we were actually going through squat patterns, pull-up patterns, deadlift patterns from 12. And that's your empty dowel, your empty barbell, your training plates. We had the fundamentals drilled into us 3 times a week from 12 to 15, when we all actually got a green light to go and start lifting weights. So it was literally pure technique for 3 years, at the point where I think you're all sort of coming up to that first major growth spurt. So then when you actually went to go and start lifting weight through that second phase, that sort of 14, 15 phase, we never really, or we took advantage of that natural body change, which helped, I think, fall in love with the training pattern, because you immediately had the results, because your technique was near enough perfect at that age. You catch the wave at the right spot, and all of us just got freakish.
Massive.
Is that where your handstand push-ups came from?
Yes, we were doing handstand push-ups at 13.
Bare freakish.
But everything was around, obviously, sport specific. So it was joint stability, it was shoulder prep, and all that sort of jazz. The drama was, obviously, you're in a competitive environment, and I was always training with the forwards and the bigger guys. So I just basically ran myself into the floor, lifting heavier than anatomically I should have been, out of pure selfish competitiveness.
Oh, yeah. Pure ego. What was your I remember you saying you something like 180, 200 kilo squat at one point?
I had a 200 kilo back squat 17. And then I'm not remotely surprised that it's my patella tendon that snapped clean off and finished me off. But yeah, I mean, I was similar to you. I sort of flickered because it's the academy and you're flickering out of the real world. But we had I finished at FC. We lost the playoff game in Leeds on the Saturday, and the Monday morning I was doing a 12-hour shift at my dad's garlic bread factory, mixing butter into a vat of garlic, and it was literally a bin bag on your arm. Mix that shit for 12 hours. 3 months of that before I went to Oz.
Still better than last place.
Still better than last place. Went to Oz for a year, played in Newcastle, and it just could never really get going because like the damage, it wasn't permanent, but it was done. And then it went again when I was out there, and I was like, that's it. And literally, you come from like I bought a one-way ticket out to Oz. That was it. I was going, and then a year later, you're back. You got no money. You've got no qualifications. You got no real world experience. It was like, well, fuck.
Must have loads of savings though from that academy wage.
My first contract was when I was 17. I think I signed a 2-year deal, and it was £250 a month. Yeah. And I had the window down. I was screaming out. I was like, I am fucking loaded.
Still better than last place.
Things I do for 250 quid a month now cannot be spoken.
Hey, we're about there.
But yes, I came back, and then I needed a complete split. I just didn't want to be around sport. I didn't want to be around training because in my head, it's like counting to 10. I got to 9 and then hadn't quite got to 10. I just needed complete separation. So I went into the sales world. I was selling apprenticeships. So I was doing vocational apprenticeships like management and accountancy qualifications, and literally went through admin to sales, regional sales, moved to a company that were in Manchester, but I was working remote. So that was like, I did a year of lone working before COVID was even a rumour.
Side note, you just pretty much trained twice a day at CrossFit as well, didn't you?
Oh yeah. That's when man got back in the game. I was strong, but like bounced in between. I had a food rep sales job, so I was literally walking around York, walking into cafes and restaurants to say, how much do you pay a supplier, and then haggle over 80p on carrots.
How we done?
And similar to you, I'm sort of like, while I'm doing that, I'm training because it's literally a stress relief from this shit job that I've got. And then when you're in the gym, I'm watching these PETs. I'm like, this is fucking abysmal. Like, what you're doing is embarrassing. Like, and you've got that outlook of, we've seen the professional environment and the standard that is, and then you see what's being offered to the general population who actually need that help. And it just blew my mind. So that's when I went through starting a PT on the side and building that up, because I was just like, I can't sit here and whinge about it if I'm not going to do anything about it. So it's like, put your money where your mouth is, and if I'm saying I can do it better, go do it.
I never saw that professional environment from it. I just always looked at people saying, like, it's just what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you care? And then that sort of tied in.
My intention when I started was always to get back into that professional environment. I wanted to be an S&C coach. I wanted to go down and work with the elite level athletes and go through that route, because I really struggled when I went into sales, was that like, you have those guys at work that just go, I'm done, that's my time, I'm clocking off. Yeah. I couldn't understand that. Well, why would you not put a shift in? Like, I'll cover your back. Why would you cover mine? Because that's, in a sporting environment, that's literally your bread and butter. The person who doesn't do that is the first one to go. And to not have that culture, I really struggle with. Anyway, I was just like, right, I need to get out of this. I want to go back into that culture where I felt like I belonged a bit more. And people don't realise how much shit you have to go through, and basically you have to concede you're going to work for 10 years unpaid near enough to be a good S&C coach, a good paid job. And it was like, we could do it, but then at the same time I'm sat there going, well, there's actually people there now that aren't elite athletes, but they need the help. So I was like, well, why not just go and help those people? Because something we spoke about a lot the last place is, you don't need to be an athlete to give effort. I was like, as long as people are willing to work hard, I can work with them.
One of the biggest surprises that you had when you first started was how fit people actually were, like at different levels. Because you expected, because you came with that CrossFit background, didn't you? Yeah. You expect everyone to be like, not as fit the CrossFit, but then as soon as it's that 15-minute mark and everyone's still pushing at that level, you're like, all right.
And again, in fact, like my the reason I went to CrossFit was it was an excuse to compete.
Yeah.
So I had that thing in me where I was like, I need something to do. I'm very obsessive about shit. Like, I can't half-ass stuff. So yeah, I was like, well, if you know, and obviously coming to you guys, it was more quality of day-on-day delivery. Well, it was meant to be quality of day-on-day delivery. That's what you sold me, you lying prick.
I was like,
But in my head, I was like, but you're not competing, you're not working to anything. What's the end goal? And I really struggled with that. And then obviously it was COVID, so the end goal was just survive and keep everyone happy.
yeah. And we created an end goal like that's probably.
But I mean, like I say, when we go back to programming, like I'm a big advocate of training blocks because you need that either regular testing to one, make sure what you're doing is effective, but two, you need something to work towards. Obviously, we're doing this comp in a month. That's
switch your training right up, isn't it?
Like straight away, it's that fire in the belly to like, right, let's dial in and let's go after it then. And I sort of conceded, I'd stepped away from that because I'm now that obsessive over the details of the programming and the coaching and the business and making sure like I can be that competitive person and create that environment around a business, but for the right reasons. And I knew full well I couldn't do that and compete at the same time. But then, Beth got pregnant, so here I am. She's watching, outrageous, but we'll go do a deal. So yeah, no pressure. But I keep saying we'll calm and we're good, but come the day I'm going to be right up your ass.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I'll deliver, bro.
So yeah, I'm that guy you hear at the pub, who was the next big thing, and then hurt his knee. My knee, and here I am.
I used to be.
Don't start, please. Mate, I went to the Martian guys and I did just a one-off like nutrition consultation, just because we were starting to do that sort of thing and I wanted to see what their process was like. So I sat there and booked a one-to-one. Well, Joella booked a one-to-one for me for his birthday present. I sat there and I was ready to go through like, what's your macro splits, what's your training like, all this sort of jazz. And it was purely an hour of basically psychological
interrogation.
Yeah. It was like a 15-page document I had to fill out, like, what's your earliest memory of food and your upbringing, and like, so yeah, I went in to get lean and came out autistic.
To be fair, I feel like we've done pretty well with these two. Yeah. I mean, he's been fiddling with that for about the last 15 minutes.
ADHD autistic.
Down there. He's been fiddling with that for 15 minutes. It's not about this, by the way.
With a glue that holds it together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean you've done well? Carry it.
No, I mean, to keep your attention going in a small room.
We did have to box him in the corner.
Mate, that first session, after that first session you did at ours, I turned around to Matt and went, does he have ADHD? He went, I'm pretty sure. I went, why do you say? I went, well, he's meant to be in front squat and he fucked off throwing a fucking wall ball in the air for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think next one, I'll have to talk. If I talk second or first, it's not a good idea. It's a bit long
She's been over on one, mate.
Cool, so there you go. That's all of us.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's all of us. So don't start your own business unless you enjoy having no money for a long period of time. Yeah. You've got someone who can put their arm around you and look after you, and
you've got the other half that can front the bills for a little while.
If you don't want to work 70 hours a week, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah,
but it gets better.
It does get better.
I think it'd be interesting to have we'll do a different one, doing a proper conversation on where, like, from where you've started, what you've done to get where you are.
Yeah,
like a proper breakdown of it.
Oh, mate,
because we all sit there and fling it around, don't we? But the actual breakdown of how you turn hard into something.
I mean, I know we said we started in 2015, but I was doing private work. I'd my mum's old Mazda, putting the bed in the back of the boot.
Yep.
Driving to this. I remember some people were on the caravan park. Yep. That was where I was working.
It was a mattress.
It was a mattress, yeah. So I'd done.
Was this still for physio?
Physio, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Just checking.
Well, I was young and naive. But yeah, it was 4 years of doing constant part-time private physio.
Yeah.
And that gave us at least a handful of people that had known and heard about me before we started Flex. Yeah. So yeah, it's hard.
Beautiful. I mean,
long.
I knew I wanted to move away from one-to-one and move to small group after doing a lot of one-to-ones for people.
That's another conversation entirely.
Yeah.
Coming back to your Mazda, my only ever experience of his bloody Mazda was we decided it'd be, again, an absolutely terrible decision to approach every GP practice in the region and offer them kickbacks on their referrals, which apparently is extremely frowned upon within the NHS. But in the process of this,
you learn by doing it. Could have done something.
In the process of this, his Mazda had a diesel leak, and oh man, we literally got diesel poisoning. It felt.
I was immune to it, but
we were in this car all day, and you could just smell diesel, and it was awful.
I've not been there, mate.
Oh,
I was driving to York in a Fiat Punto to do my runarounds.
Private schools.
Yeah, and I had a hole in the radiator, so I had to stop every 10 miles to refill the radiator with ionized water.
Mate, I just made sure all of my decisions were pretty much a 2 mile radius from my home.
The only job you've ever had is a paper round.
Mate, I the only job I've ever applied for, I don't think I've ever applied for a job.
Don't know.
I had a paper round. I went and paper shop at 12, had a paper round all my life. Up until about...
Still does.
I fucking still would as well. I got 25 quid for one round on a Sunday. Like, that was bare cash in the day. And then worked up until about 18 and went behind the till there, and then worked till about 2022. That's why I did the job at the school. I just knew the new manager there. And then while I was there training elsewhere, I got to know the person there, thinking it, and then I went, fuck it, let's do it ourselves. So you don't need a CV, you don't need a curriculum vitae, vitae, whatever it is.
Yeah, Jack Roberts. Yeah. Curriculum vitae.
Vitae.
That will stick with me for
cool. Anything else to add, gents? Beautiful.
Until next go out, I think. Till next
for a first
time.
let's go get bare views. This.
Oh yeah.
I reckon we should YouTube it.
If we get double figures,
there's a channel.
I'll be buzzing.
Right, well,
Stephen Bartlett, watch out. Stephen Bartlett, watch out. We'll start getting really deep and talking about our childhood now. We're all crippled.
I've still got all my forms from the nutrition seminar I could use.
Next up, find out why Al is autistic. ADHD and running a small business. How does that go down?
Yeah. There's a lot more running, a lot less business.
Right, cheers guys.
Thank you.